Greetings and salutations! Once again, to the great dismay of all those unfortunate enough to be listening to my voice right now, I have returned for yet another video. This time we aren't going to be doing a serious deep dive, nor are we going to be doing a more lighthearted pseudo-rant about current events. No, today we're going to be diving back into the depraved depths of that seething infinite hell known as 2017. Temptedly hip but inflexibly corporate bullshit and all. Truly a complete cinematic revival of that absolute clusterfuck of a year. I'm gonna have to ask you to forgive the amount of words I just used that mean nothing to anyone who doesn't read thesource.com for fun. I'm feeling quite verbose today. Now, I know that in the last video I said I was working on a video about the Democratic debates, and indeed I am, but sifting through almost 8 hours of footage is no easy task, and though I'd like to have that video done and ready by the time the next debates roll around, that's looking rather unlikely to be quite frank. So in the intervening time I'm going to be doing a few smaller videos, more casual videos. I honestly didn't intend to do a response to this, but it popped up in my recommended feed. I didn't really have any other good ideas, so here we are.
We're number one. And no, not just in mass shootings and military spending, also weapons dealing. We know from fact-based, stat-heavy, well-researched, peer-reviewed studies, America isn't actually number one in the world, or the best. Unless best here is in reference to Melania's anti-bullying slogan, be best, in which case, it kinda works.
I checked in the description for said studies and was unable to locate anything other than opinion pieces. Doesn't really matter though, because ranking greatness, an unquantifiable thing with statistics, is intellectually dishonest. And we wouldn't want that now, would we?
And yet we cling to the idea that we're the best, that everything we do in the world is for the good of it, and that we're the world's role model.
Like it or not, the reason most countries in the world are some form of democracy is because of America, which for much of its history is one of the only democratic nations on the planet. And also, no one thinks that everything we do in the world is good for it. That's absurd.
First, what is American Exceptionalism? You might not be familiar with the term, but you're definitely familiar with its noises.
America is the greatest country in the world.
We know this is the greatest country on earth.
We're the greatest country ever, and it's a fact.
This is America, the greatest country on planet Earth.
The greatest country in the history of man and woman.
What an adorable afterthought. Hey, thanks, Nikki Haley, for challenging the patriarchy. But not too much.
I want to die.
American Exceptionalism is the Regina George of geopolitical ideology. It's the we're hot, you're not, deal with it belief system that says, sure, we've got deep-seated emotional problems, a traumatic childhood, and our friends are only our friends because they're afraid of us. It doesn't matter because everything we touch is amazing, it's only cool when we do it, and like, do you even go here?
Congratulations, you've just described every nation in human history.
Just take it from the Regina George of newscasters.
Well, the left is never going to understand American exceptionalism because they don't believe in American exceptionalism, but I don't know about you guys. I believe we live in the greatest nation on the face of the earth. I believe that we are a beaming light for the rest of the world, and for those who feel otherwise, there are 195 other countries, so I suggest they go pick one.
Yeah, but I want California. Without you. Or Mel Gibson. Should we just rock, paper, scissors, or do we have to fight?
Right, because the childish love-it-or-leave-it attitude of neocons represents all of American exceptionalism and all of its adherents, much like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez represents all opposition to the Republican Party. Oh, wait.
Thing is, when Americans say we're number one, it doesn't exactly come from here. It comes from here.
You're one to be complaining about arguments from emotion.
It's mostly just a slogan we repeat, and that the right uses to test our loyalty to the country we live in, and attack anyone trying to make it better, which is the equivalent of shaming a firefighter for trying to put out a fire in your own home. Love it or leave it, asshole. I love the smell of toxic smoke in the...
No, see, here lies the fundamental flaw in your argument. You equate American nationalism with American exceptionalism, and you seem to assume that all American exceptionalists are one variant or another of neocon. What American exceptionalism actually is the belief that America, 1, is inherently different from other nations, 2, needs to spread its democratic ideals across the world, and 3, is superior to all other nations. Though those are all core beliefs of neoconservatism, they aren't exclusive to neoconservatives.
So where does the idea of American exceptionalism come from? Some say it has to do with our founding and our Constitution, which guaranteed equality to all. Of course, the country was founded through the violent takeover of Native American land and enslaving Africans to help build us into a global economic superpower. Look, it was aspirational.
If genociding natives and enslaving Africans was why we became a global economic superpower, then please explain why Brazil isn't 10 times more powerful than us in accordance with how many more slaves they had than us.
But a more recent moment that has deeply shaped our exceptionalism was when the US entered World War II and helped Allied countries defeat Nazism. Sure, we showed up late in Europe, kind of how your period shows up late. Little scary, and then there's way too much blood, but ultimately, relief.
The only reason America entered both world wars late was because America ended both world wars.
All you ever do is complain.
After the war, and in part thanks to it, America emerged as the world's main economic superpower. We were helping other countries rebuild, and in turn, they had to buy our goods. America basically became the world's pushy Tupperware lady that no one could say no to. And if you like that dip and serve tray, you might also like this F-16.
Way to turn this would-be argument into a stale and unoriginal joke. Next.
And when the Soviet Union collapsed, well, it all went a bit to our heads. You could say we finally won the measuring contest, or space race.
Please stop.
So there we were, the victors of the world, with the cash and the glory, and all that helped fuel our illusion of American exceptionalism. And that's usually where the action movie ends, because no one wants to know what happens after Rocky wins. Or in America's case, we expand our military around the world, kill millions by getting involved in military conflicts from Central America to Vietnam under the Cold War ideology of stopping communism, embrace free market policies that end up ruining our workforce and that of other countries, and oops, who knew all that foreign intervention would lead to crazed murderers who want to kill Americans, and they do. And instead of reassessing our response, we invade 2 more countries that had nothing to do with it. Well, one we invade again, and throw trillions of dollars at counterterrorism, only to still be fighting in Afghanistan, the never-ending war which just turned 18, and that means it's old enough to fight itself, okay?
I actually agree with most of this, or at least the part regarding interventionism. I think the Wilsonian interventionism which has plagued American foreign policy for the last century needs to be purged from our country permanently to be replaced by a more mild Rooseveltian interventionism. Get in, get the job done, then get out. However, we do have to accept the reality that we've gotten ourselves in a double bind. Pulling out of Afghanistan now would just mean the Taliban coming back to power and us having to repeat the process all over again, and not leaving results in continued war and death. We're going to need to see some sort of compromise between the two if Afghanistan is ever to see peace again.
And yes, somewhere in all that, Prince released Purple Rain, and for a moment, things were good.
What the fuck does this have to do with American exceptionalism? They always just, they try to make these jokes, and they fall so flat. Like, you can tell they're trying to be cool and hip and edgy, but it's so out of touch, so fake, so corporate. I'm losing brain cells.
And maybe behind all of our problems is that pig-headed ideology called American exceptionalism.
This word exceptionalism, which has been repeated throughout American history, that we are the exceptional country, that at this point, I think, makes us a danger to ourselves.
Okay. How? The only one of the 3 pillars of American exceptionalism that has harmed us is the American goal to spread democracy around the world. Again, we operate off a Wilsonian framework of interventionism, because most of you probably don't know what that is, and because that is an explanation far too long for this video, I've left some links in the description that explain it. But basically it's the making the world safe for democracy bullshit that we hear all the time. That, in my opinion, is a perversion of the American goal to spread democratic ideals. There are other ways to do it than how we have in the last half-century.
Our American exceptionalism has made us a danger to ourselves and others. Case in point, our wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. Moves that truly sealed our fate, not as leaders in human rights or democracy around the world, but being a violent global douchebag. After those wars, the perception of America in both Europe and the Middle East, which already wasn't good, fell even further. Also, because when France wouldn't join the war, we tried to make freedom fries a thing, and the world was like, stop trying to make freedom fries happen. It's not going to happen.
Stop with the bad jokes. I just went over this point 2 minutes ago and I'm too lazy to restructure the video, so next.
In many ways, the Iraq f***up got us a president who didn't vote for it and campaigned on ending the war. Obama understood how much international trust was lost in America after 8 years of fighting. He knew American exceptionalism was a problem, even though he said he believed in it.
I believe in American exceptionalism with every fiber of my being. But what makes us exceptional is not our ability to flout international norms and the rule of law. It is our willingness to affirm them through our actions.
Hey, are you going to try to actually prove that Obama doesn't believe in American exceptionalism? Because the clip you showed only presented evidence to the contrary.
God, he's so diplomatic and presidential, I almost forgot about things like the expanded drone program. Like, it briefly disappeared from memory, and in that moment, things were good.
Oh, it's this joke again. And again, it makes no sense. You know what? I'm going to derail this video for a second here to just explain my frustration at this joke. This things were good gag is very obviously a setup to a punchline later on, but there is no punchline. It's just totally random and doesn't contribute anything to this video, neither comedically nor argumentatively. Rant over, let's go.
Obama came into the White House with a radical agenda on foreign policy by telling the truth about our foreign policy.
While the United States has done much to promote peace and prosperity in the hemisphere, we've at times been disengaged, and at times we've sought to dictate our terms. But I pledge to you that we seek an equal partnership.
All the Latin American leaders behind him are like, ¿Estás bien, hermano? ¡Qué chistoso! ¿En serio?
Well, no shit. What have we got here? A fucking comedian.
But all that diplomacy was referred to by the right as Obama's apology tour.
The World Apology Tour that Obama conducted.
President Obama began his presidency with an apology tour.
President Obama becoming the first sitting U.S. president to visit Hiroshima since the U.S. dropped an atomic bomb there. A lot of people debating today whether this was an extension of President Obama's apology tour.
It was considerably worse than a simple apology. It was a stagecrafted act of atonement.
What? We're talking about f***ing Hiroshima. 140,000 people murdered with an American atomic bomb. Even Jeffrey Dahmer apologized for his crimes, and he ate people. Think about that.
If we hadn't dropped the nukes, we would have had to invade mainland Japan, and we would have killed hundreds of thousands more people than the nuclear bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki did. The decision to use nukes to end the war ultimately saved many more lives than it took. We shouldn't have to apologize for that.
Obama was attempting to help America dip its toes into the idea that we should no longer be the world's police, nor are we the only economic superpower. Other economies, not just in Western Europe, but also BRIC countries, have grown faster than the US economy and are on track to outpace us in the next 20 years. And they do natural resource destruction, foreign election meddling, religious nationalism, and gymnastics almost as good as us now.
In other words, we can do one of two things. Either let these countries overtake us and do nothing about it, or do what we can to stay on top and not bend over to other nations. I don't know about you, but I think the better option for America is quite clear.
We're in different geopolitical times, thanks in part to how poorly we managed our power. Now America doesn't call the shots, and that scares many people, especially the powerful on both sides of the aisle.
It scares me, and I'm a high school student recording political videos on a $30 microphone in my bedroom in my spare time. Not quite what I would call powerful.
Which brings us to Trump. Trump was elected on the premise that he was going to make America exceptional again, and yet his entire presidency is proof that we aren't.
To insinuate that one president's poor performance disproves the idea that America is exceptional is hilarious.
He's a strongman TV star who got help from a foreign government to get where he is. Welcome to the rest of the world, baby!
Are we seriously still pushing the Trump-Russia collusion narrative, which was disproven over half a year ago? God is indeed currently dead.
And in some ways, he knows we're not special. Because like Obama, Trump is also honest about our foreign policy, but this time with a sociopath's lack of regret.
He's a killer, though. Putin's a killer. A lot of killers. We got a lot of killers. Why you think our country's so innocent?
I mean, he isn't wrong. If anything, this is pointing out that America often runs into the same flaws as every other nation. I fail to understand what's wrong with this statement here.
We should have taken the oil. You wouldn't have ISIS if we took the oil.
That'd bring back a hell of a lot worse than waterboarding.
If there's one thing Donald Trump knows how to do, it's getting people to notice him. He knew that calling for the torture of Muslim extremists on national television so bluntly would make him stand out from the rest and rile up American conservatives in support of him. It's just strategy. I'm not saying that I agree with what he said, but I do understand why he said it.
Trump doesn't see America as a force for good in the world. And on the one hand, after so much righteous bombing, that's almost a bit of a relief. Until you look at how he's cozied up to our most unhinged allies and foes. Saudi Arabia, Israel, North Korea, Russia, and right-wing populists like Boris Johnson, Marie Le Pen, Roseanne Barr.
Let's examine this statement closely. She says Trump is cozied up with our most unhinged allies and foes. Saudi Arabia? Yeah, I won't defend that one. Fuck Saudi Arabia. Israel? One of America's closest allies since its inception. North Korea? He's literally trying to prevent a nuclear war. Is there nothing you people won't go after him for? Russia? Same as with North Korea. If we don't want a nuclear war with Russia, we're going to have to do some defrosting from the Cold War. Right-wing populists? Yeah, Donald Trump is a right-wing populist, so no shit he'll cozy up to world leaders who lean similar to him politically.
Also, let's remember that for whatever isolationist talk Trump spewed, he's expanded drone strikes to 5 times the rate of Obama, authorizing 75 of them in his first 74 days in office. But on that 75th day, in that moment, things were good. No, they weren't.
Oh, okay. Sorry guys, I was wrong. Apparently there was a punchline.
Is what America does still matters to the world. And when we leave behind the better parts of American exceptionalism, the whole wanting to be human rights leaders and promoting democracy, there are real consequences. For example, when the Trump administration withdrew from the UN Human Rights Council, or said this about the UN's International Criminal Court after it floated the idea of holding the US accountable for war crimes in Afghanistan.
The United States will provide no support in recognition to the International Criminal Court. As far as America is concerned, the ICC has no jurisdiction, no legitimacy, and no authority.
The United Nations is a broken and convoluted mess of a system. If we are to fix it or perhaps even recreate it in a new form, the US will have to make its stance clear and firm.
That emboldened countries like the Philippines, whose President Rodrigo Duterte is under investigation for human rights abuses, to up and leave the International Criminal Court outright. Now, the ICC isn't perfect, but if we subscribe to the idea that everyone is a murderer and international law is BS, then we don't just have an inaction on human rights, we have no framework for it.
Right, because apparently the only possible framework for human rights is the United Nations.
So there's nothing to stop, say, Saudi Arabia from kidnapping and murdering a journalist, or Russia from poisoning 2 people in a UK park. And the only thing to stop Trump from declaring war on Iran is if Saudi Prince bin Salman wakes up with a tummy ache and is just like not in the mood anymore.
Wait, hold up. Are you saying that the ICC prevents human rights abuses? Because no, it doesn't. And are you implying that these wouldn't be considered human rights abuses without the ICC? Is that seriously how important you think the UN is?
And all Trump's chest beating is only further proof that American exceptionalism is gone.
For a moment, when a bully talks like that, people in other countries stand back, but it's more like the cartoon character that ran off the cliff, doesn't realize it, thinks everything's fine, and then
As sad as that is, it's almost comforting to know there's a blueprint for American politics right now, even if that blueprint is Looney Tunes. Let me guess, when we finally build the wall, we just paint a tunnel on it to injure all the migrants? It makes sense.
Stop giving me ideas, Francesca.
Also, an anvil falling on Trump would be the perfect way to end this nightmare.
Oh, believe me, Trump dying would only be the start of the nightmare. I'd like to take this time to remind you that Mike Pence supports conversion therapy for homosexuals.
We're in free fall when it comes to what America's role is in the world.
Correct. So again, why do you want to let this happen and not try to do anything to stop it? I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that it's because you think America doesn't deserve the #1 spot.
If we're not the Regina George of it, the aggressor or the savior, who are we?
We really need to rethink what are our priorities. We remain with the institutional priorities of this quasi-imperial state of ours, which overthrows governments or puts sanctions or dictates to others what to do, but it's not going to work this way.
Right. The US can't be that asshole that won't come to the party unless we're the center of attention, especially when that attention is insisting on busting out an acoustic guitar and singing Wonderwall. After all, we'll build that wonder wall.
Dear God, please stop singing. You know what? Fuck it. If they want to finish their video with terrible off-the-cuff singing, then it's only fair that I do the same. The terrible din of the bullshit just spin, like my singing leaves us all in peril. I'll leave this right here as your craft disappears, shipwrecked like the Edmund Fitzgerald.